Okay, hi all, and welcome to the second Sidelines Soccer podcast. I'm Peter Benson. I've got with me Fons Yap and Mihir Pandya, and we're going to be discussing all of the transfer news that's been going on, mainly in the Premier League, due to the fact that they signed that large television deal. So there's been a lot of money being thrown right there. So we'll start there, then we'll move on to Europe after that, and we'll discuss kind of the European ramifications of all this money being spent in England. So to lead you guys off, obviously the biggest piece of news this year has been Raheem Sterling. He was inevitably going to go from about March. There's been rumours flying around that he was off to Real Madrid, but has ended up settling for City. So Fawn sitting there in the Liverpool top. I'll start with you because it's probably a slightly more painful loss for yourself. So how do you feel that hinders Liverpool going forward, and what other pieces of business that Liverpool have done you're happier with?
Yeah, I mean, obviously losing somebody like Sterling, who's only 20 years old, who's so talented, such a great player, will always be painful. But I just think it was like there's no way for him to come back for this season. Like he alienated himself from the fans, like with the whole BBC interview, and his agent was just terrible. And then you want the players to focus on what they're doing on the field instead of answering the question of, oh, is Sterling coming back? Like, do you think he should go on tour in Asia? You just want them to focus on performing well. You want Rodgers to focus on coaching, on managing, and making sure everybody's ready. And I just think, we added somebody like Firmino before we sold Sterling, so we kind of softened the blow with adding such a talented guy in Firmino who can play more or less the same positions, who is also very talented, very creative, and who has like a chemistry with Philippe Coutinho already. So I think that'll just make a transition easier to the Premier League, even though he's coming from Germany, where it's not the same, but just going to a team where you have Rodgers who can develop, who's great at developing players. You also got guys like Ings, Klein, and so I think it was the right decision, even though it's painful. It was the right decision for everyone. Sterling can go off and party in Manchester, do whatever he wants. They'll have to deal with him now.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I mean, obviously with Sterling, kind of the last piece going from the team 2 years ago that obviously made a run at the title. With that team now decimated, Suarez obviously went last year to Barcelona here, and then Sterling's gone this year. Sturridge really the only one left from that SAS that was absolutely tearing the Premier League apart. You think the new signings, Danny Ings, Firmino, can come in and kind of maybe not replicate that goal tally, but do you think they can provide kind of a spark to Liverpool that will see them kind of push for top four again?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Go ahead. No,
I wouldn't say top four, because honestly, this is a new era for Liverpool, and like Fon said, it was the right decision to let Sterling go. So bringing in all these new players, trying to start up a whole new system is the right move for Liverpool. Like you said, they lost Suarez, they lost Sterling, and Gerrard's gone. The main piece of their puzzle for so many years is gone. So it's a whole new era, and I think Brandon Rodgers might last a few more seasons, or maybe just one, but I think he needs to go soon too, just because it's a whole new team. Robert Firmino is a good talent, but we saw him play in Copa America, and he was all right. He was average. So hopefully he can turn that form around and come in and score those goals. And Danny Ings, like you said, if he can, get his goal unmarked, then yeah, it could be a good season for them. Maybe mid-table, maybe even a Europa spot, but I wouldn't say top four.
Okay. I like that, Fons. So then moving over to the team that Sterling's just gone to in City, their pieces of business, obviously Sterling being the main one, but they've also added Fabian Delph from Aston Villa, despite him refusing the contract the first time around. Obviously painful last year, kind of going in as one of the title favourites. Do you think they've done enough business at this point, Fons, to maybe warrant them being in the title race talk, or do you think they're still going to finish in that second or third spot?
I mean, they're always going to be in the hunt for the title. I mean, there's too talented, too many good players on the team. And last year, they ended the season on a really good run. So if it was closer, I think, and Chelsea lost, I think, one or two games towards the end. So if it was closer throughout the season, Man City probably would have won again, which would have been really annoying.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, when you add Sterling, obviously he will help your team no matter what. You just have to figure out how much time is he going to get compared to the other players on the team because they have Aguero, they have Navas, they have Nasri, they have all these really talented guys who don't play a ton of games, um, and they're still looking to add who Jack Wilshere. So if he comes in, that'll be another player who like they need to figure out how they're gonna divide the time, maybe rotate the squad a lot more. But yeah, I mean it's probably them, Chelsea, Man United for the title, really.
Yeah, I would maybe agree with that one as well. I mean, in terms of them getting better, though, obviously Sterling does, I think we would all agree, make them better in some capacity. But really, apart from that, obviously their failings in the midfield were massive last year with kind of Yaya Touré's dip in form, wasn't scoring nearly enough goals, and both Fernando and Fernandinho kind of couldn't replicate that form of 2 years ago when they did win the title. Mahir, do you think they need to maybe sign another person in the midfield or even the defender with losing the Stasic, even though he wasn't that good, and Mangala not really working out? Do you think there's another piece that they need to add if they're going to make a title run, or do you think they're set just now?
Well, to start off, I just want to mention 49 million. No, that's way too much for Sterling. But
Hmm.
you know what? They splashed their money. They have money to splash, so it's okay. Um, but yeah, I think they definitely. Yaya Toure last year was distracted by injuries and the African Cup and all that, so I think he'll be good enough in the midfield. But I think they really need to work on the defense. Zabaleta is getting really old. He's in there. He's just moving around. He was playing for Argentina for Copa America, and he was just not looking that great. So I think, yeah, they definitely need to make some signings on defense. Their midfield is padded up enough with depth for them to switch out players to game in and game out. And I think last year they were more focused on trying to succeed in the Champions League because that's the monkey that they can't get off of their back every single year. They end up facing Barcelona and somehow lose. So it's a very frustrating time for them when it comes to Champions League knockout round. So that's when they lost their mojo, kind of, around that time, January, February. So yeah, maybe, a couple of signings on defense would probably do it. I mean, they have Joe Hart back there, so you don't have to do much, but you have to try at least, give him some help. So yeah, they could definitely be in the top three once again, but a little help on defense wouldn't hurt.
Yeah. So then, should they be making a run at the player that obviously has been linked to the club in the same city as them and Sergio Ramos? Should they be making a run at Mats Hummels? Kind of what players would you guys identify as ones that would help them kind of get over that hump?
I mean, adding any like Ramos or Hummels will always help you so much. Uh, not just with their talent, but like their leadership. They can read the game well. They'll like them like any defense with Ramos and Joe Hart like should be like really good already. So you need to fill out the rest of the spots on the roster. And as Mir said, need to add some younger players because Kolarov is 29, Zabaleta's 30 already. So there's maybe 1 or 2 more years where they're going to be good, and so you need to add more depth to the squad because these guys are getting old, and Man City will always have a ton of matches to play.
Okay, that's perfect. So sticking in Manchester then, move to a club that's a little closer to my heart. We'll go to the red side of Manchester. You want to talk about splashing the cash? Obviously, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast, the new TV deals meant that there's been a heavy injection of money into the Premier League. So we thought we'd see a window like this, but nobody's kind of exemplified that more than Man United this season. I think they've been one of the more active kind of teams at the top of the table. With adding Schweinsteiger, adding Schneiderlin, kind of taking players away from the top, that the kind of next step down, as well as taking players from abroad. So what do you guys make of kind of their activity, and will that help them kind of make a proper title push, or are they still kind of another year away, do you believe? Start with you here for that one.
I believe they can make a run at the championship for sure. they've made some very quality signings. Memphis Depay, Schweinsteiger, Sherlin. They've been splashing the cash, like you said, and it's gonna pay off because Louis Van Gaal is a pretty smart coach. He knows what he's doing, and he's forcing out some of these older players and, in a sense, taking out the trash. RVP, he had a pretty good first season when he moved under Sir Alex, but he just didn't cut it. The Falcao loan was just a really bad mistake, and good thing it was a loan because they didn't lose that much money. And now he's at Chelsea. We'll see what happens there. But I think Man U can definitely make a run at the championship. A few more defenders wouldn't hurt. And if they do lose De Gea to Real Madrid, then they'll definitely need to consider a really good goalie because apparently Victor Valdez isn't good enough and they're going to kick him out. So yeah, I think they can definitely make a run at it. Just have to put a few more finishing touches on the team.
Okay. And yeah, Fon's pretty much the same question.
Yeah, I mean, if they add, like, they're linked to Pedro, they're linked to Ramos, like, those are superstar players. They add Schweinsteiger, who's one of the best players in the world, for not that much, surprisingly. It wasn't that expensive. And then they added, Schneiderlin, he'll come to a crowded midfield, so I don't know how that's going to work out, because, Van Gaal is, he's a smart coach, but he can only play so many guys in the midfield. And Ashley Young's not going to play at right back anymore. So, yeah, as Mihir said, you need to add a goalkeeper if De Gea does leave, because he was, at times, like, the only thing between conceding 5 goals and conceding 1 in some of the matches. So, who knows? Are they going to go after Hugo Lloris? If De Gea does leave this season, and if they're already saying he has a deal with Real Madrid that he's going to leave next season, so is that going to cut into his playing time because they're going to want to bring in another guy just to help him like get used to the team more now?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think United's business has been pretty good so far. Obviously, Depay, I think, wants to play more centrally, wants to play more of as a striker threat. But I still think, I mean, I'm sure you guys would agree that we need to add a striker of some kind. The links with Benteke kind of have been rubbished by Liverpool now, kind of going in for him. So I think we definitely are United are in the market for a striker. And they've made that known now. So if they are in that market for the striker, who do you think they should be going for? I mean, is Benzema out of their range? If Real Madrid, if De Gea was to go one way, could Benzema come the other way, or who else would kind of be of a Man United standard in your guys' minds?
To be honest, I would go for Lewandowski. He's out there in Bayern. He doesn't get the playing time that he deserves, to be honest, because the Bayern is filled with superstars. And like Fon said, you can only play a certain amount of players at a time. So they're out there, splitting time, just trying to focus on Champions League because the German league's a joke. I think if they're really trying to get a quality striker, it would be Lewandowski right now. Benzema, he's had some good years, and I'm not going to deny that he's a great striker, but he would just cost too much because they would probably ask for De Gea and cash on top of that because it's Real Madrid. They want money. So we'll see. But, yeah, I definitely think Lewandowski would be a great option alongside Rooney.
And Fons?
I mean, yeah, Lewandowski would be great, but I don't know if Bayern's going to sell 2 players to the same team. They're not Southampton. I think Pedro would be a good fit there because, he is both a goal scorer and a winger. Having him would allow, Van Gaal to play Rooney, Depay out in the middle, and then Pedro can just come in, cut in from the wing, and basically play the same role that he had in Barcelona. Just don't be the center of attention. Just like go in and score some crucial goals. And Van Gaal would know how to use any good player. So I think Pedro would be my pick, and he's probably cheaper than Benzema because he's not getting that much playing time in Barca.
So as opposed to adding a striker, add somebody who would then take Depay and put him more centrally. I quite like that. So then kind of there was that obviously mention from me here right at the top was talking about United with Falcao. So let's move on to the team that he moved to. Chelsea seems like a pretty good fit for him on the face of it. That kind of big aerial striker. They like that just to play in behind, well not in behind, but play instead of Diego Costa. Kind of coming as a replacement for Drogba as a bench warmer slash kind of substitute. Really, that's the major piece of business for Chelsea. It's not as if they needed to do much business. Do you think that, on top of Falcao, one, will he be successful? And two, do you think that Chelsea need to do any further business to ensure that they, give themselves a good chance to retain the title? Fonz?
Yeah, I mean, they won the title last year, I mean, by 8 points and had a plus 41 goal difference, so they don't really need to add anything. Yeah, I mean, now that Drogba's gone, you add Falcao, who's much younger, who's pretty much built the same way. As you said, he's a big, powerful striker, and Mourinho, the genius that he is, will find a way to make him a better player somehow. And yeah, the key bench striker was really the only thing they needed because Hazard, Fabregas, Costa, they all score a lot of goals. Oscar also. So adding somebody who can come in from the bench when Mourinho decides to rotate the squad, or if Costa gets injured again, to come in and be essentially in the same role. It's really helpful, and it's really annoying considering that they're going to be really good again next year.
And then Mahir, quickly, just obviously with still covering Chelsea, with John Terry getting older kind of at the back, obviously Chelsea's defensive record in the last 2 years has been, nothing short of really unbelievable. Terry being at the heart of that despite his advanced age. Do you think kind of this is the year maybe he takes a step back and Chelsea kind of have to look at finding a replacement for him? Should they be in the market for somebody like a Hummels if he is available? Somebody to kind of come in and learn under him before he does eventually kind of fade out? Or do you think they're pretty much set at that position?
For this season, I think they're pretty much set for that. I think John Terry can still do a lot more than players his age can. He's a class act. So, considering that, yeah, they do need to bring in younger defenders rather, center backs. But the thing is, every time that Mourinho brings in these young players, they don't get any playtime whatsoever. They sit on the bench. They bought Guardado last year, and he's been sitting on the bench just doing absolutely nothing. He's a really good player. When you see him play for Colombia, because that's the only playtime he got last year, he was amazing. So I don't know why he does that, but bringing in those young players, you're just going to let them sit there, maybe loan them out. I don't know what's going to happen with them. So maybe wait until John Terry's ready to take that backseat and then bring in somebody good. And as for Falcao, he's played with Diego Costa before. This partnership has worked very well before at Atletico Madrid, except the roles were reversed when Diego was on the bench and Falcao was starting. But I think they can definitely attack, just switch in alternatives, and they'll be pretty good. They're going to score goals, and they're going to score a lot of them. So watch out.
Okay. And I think you're totally right, Mia. I think just to quickly round off kind of the Premier League part of this podcast, we've not talked about kind of the two North London teams, the other teams at the top of the table. So Arsenal's window's been relatively quiet. Obviously, the only major signing, in fact, the only signing they've made at all, was bringing in Petr Cech, which was obviously a very good signing. Great need there. They needed to kind of get somebody above Chesney, and Cech kind of fills that gap. Obviously, there's always chat kind of around Arsenal every year. They need a couple of pieces and they'll be ready to make a run at the title. Do either of you two believe that Arsenal are able to make a run at the title this year? And if they're not, what do they need to be able to do that? Fonz?
Yeah, I mean, it's always one of those things where if Arsenal stay healthy, they'll be good. And, they were more or less healthy towards the end of last year, and they were really good. I think they need a centre-back the most, because Mertesacker is 30 years old, Koscielny is 29. They have Gabriel Paulista on the team, but he's not he hasn't been playing a ton, so who knows if he's actually really good or Premier League worthy. Uh, yeah, so if they add in another big signing, which it should be a center back because they already have so many good, uh, attacking creative players. Why not just make the defense more solid because that's usually what gets them beat.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think defender-wise, obviously keeping Koscielny fit as well, because
Yeah.
Koscielny is really kind of the rock of that defence. They play a hell of a lot better with Koscielny in the team than without it. And then, yeah, I totally agree on the midfielder front. I think if all their midfielders stay healthy, that rotation's good enough. But then, what about at the top end of the field? Then, Mahir, do you think that they should really be adding a striker? There's rumours that they're looking at Cavani, Benzema. There's kind of always rumours that they're looking at a striker. Can Giroud, if he stays healthy, can Giroud be the striker, or do you think they need to put somebody in front of him?
The most important position they need to fill is their conditioning coach.
Hmm.
So many injuries year in, year out. It's just ridiculous. Like, I don't know what's happening over there. They sold Vermaelen to Barcelona. He was hurt for a year. I don't know. It's an Arsenal curse. But I think striker-wise and attacking-wise, I think they're very well-rounded right now. Olivier Giroud is a good player if he can stay healthy. Jack Wilshere. They've got Alexis Sanchez. Mesut Ozil can score goals. It's just a lot of really quality players up there, and they definitely can convert. But like you said, the defense needs to step it up a little bit. And now that they have a really good goalkeeper, even though he hasn't played a lot in the last year, so we'll see how that affects him. They can make a run at the top three, maybe try to force themselves into the top three. But I think they're going to end up in fourth once again. And they have a lot of young players coming up, like Bellerin, Copeland. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. But they're really good players, so maybe there's a bright future there. But I think as of right now, they're looking at number 4 on the table.
Yeah. And that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? They're perennially looking at a bright future, but never really developing into that threat at the top. So then, yeah, just quickly before we jump onto some predictions, because I'm conscious of time here, just want to throw some kind of, lower league or lower down the league kind of signings, and just kind of get your guys' thoughts on what the best piece of business so far. So Distan's gone from Everton to Bournemouth. Bournemouth have also signed Christian Atsu, the Ghanaian winger, quite pacey. He looked pretty good in the World Cup a year ago. Crystal Palace managed to sign Cabaye from PSG. I'm just having a look at these as well. Wijnaldum, gone from PSV to Newcastle for £20 million. Some of these quite big signings. What, in your minds, has been, and including the top teams that we've already discussed, what's been the best piece of business for you by an English club so far in this window?
I don't know. I mean, Johan Cabaye, where did he go? Did he go to Crystal Palace, I think? Right. Yeah, I think, he's a really good player. Moved away from Newcastle, I believe, which is just a train wreck, really. So I think he's a really good signing for Crystal Palace because they're not the biggest club, but to add somebody, who can come in, create and score goals, be a good influence on the team. I think he is, among the lower league, probably the best signing.
That's fine. I'm here. Best piece of business for you?
Best outside of the big teams. I was mentioning before. I would say Gerard Deulofeu to Everton.
Yeah.
He's a really good wing player. He's been there before, so he knows the team's philosophy, and he can score goals. And he proved that with Sevilla last year, with them winning the Europa. He was a big part of that. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll get predictions from both of you. So, what's your order for the top 4 this year? Who's getting the Europa League spot, and which teams do you think are getting relegated?
I'd say Chelsea, City, United, Arsenal, and as much as it pains me to say it, Liverpool will remain out of the top 4. So painful. And then I think without Benteke, Villa, could really fall off. Watford and Norwich, like they're not. I don't think they'll have enough to stay on.
Okay, that's perfect. I'm in here.
I'm gonna go. This might make you happy. United, Chelsea, City, Arsenal, and Liverpool. Probably 5, but maybe even lower. Um, and then relegation-wise, I would say, like he said, Villa, they're going to be really hit from that Benteke transfer. So Villa, Watford again, and Bournemouth.
Bournemouth. Okay. Craig and Norwich. I think Norwich's experience. I like that call. Norwich's experience of the Premier League. I think over Bournemouth and Watford. Watford have been out for a number of years now.
Right.
Bournemouth are obviously brand new. Looks like they made some good signings. By those things, as I say, Christian Atsu and
Watford has been active.
Pardon?
Watford has been very active, so maybe they will, but I don't know.
Yeah. Again, they have been pretty active. Berami's pretty good signing in that midfield, and Kapui as well from Tottenham. So again, strengthening the midfield, which is what you want to do for a lower league game. Kind of make the game smaller, make it tighter, and see if you can kind of grind out some results.
Right.
I think from a personal point of view, I love your pick me here, but I can't do it. My head says United still aren't ready to go on and win the league, and I think Chelsea will retain the title. I think last year their business was so good in terms of buying what they needed. They needed a big proper striker, signed Costa, signed Fabregas as their creative midfielder, and I don't think they've gotten any worse out of the transfer window at all, losing Cech because he wasn't even their starting goalkeeper, and they haven't really lost any other players. I still think that they're the team to beat, and until kind of the season starts and a ball is kicked, I'm not sure I can pick past them. But I'll go Chelsea, United, City, Arsenal, and then I'll pick Liverpool as well. I think Liverpool have gotten much better than the two teams below them in Southampton and Tottenham. I think Jordan Classy is a signing that neither of you mentioned, and neither did I. But Jordan Classy for Southampton's a sneaky good signing. But I think losing Schneiderlin is going to be a big blow for them in the midfield. I think they're going to find it really tough to come back from that. And then, I'm probably just going to copy your Smee here, unfortunately, and stick with your relegation picks of Watford, Bournemouth, and I think I agree with both of you that Villa losing Delph, their captain, and losing Benteke is really, really tough. So, and with that, England is done, but we'll move into the rest of Europe, and the big story coming out of Europe, or that has been, reverberating around Europe since pretty much Pogba became the electrifying player that he is just now, and is going to be the hottest property of this window. Obviously, City were bidding for him at the start. I think looking at a potential replacement, Yaya Toure, who's now north of 30. But with Barcelona coming in, it's pretty much now Barcelona's player to lose. Do you think that Pogba will go this window? And if so, do you think he makes Barca better? Mahir, I'll start with you with the Barca top one.
I don't think he's going to leave this window, mainly because he still has about a year on his contract left, and another reason is because of the Barca transfer ban. We did sign Arda Turan and Alex Vidal, but they're not going to be able to play it until January. So with a player like Pogba, we can bring him in, but there's no way we can sit him out for 6 months and hope that he picks up in a while. So I think if we do have some sort of contract set up with them, it wouldn't be signing until the next transfer window when we can actually sign players and bring them in. And that could be next year's summer window, because it would be distracting for him to come in half season. So I think, he's definitely our player to lose, as in Barca's, and he should be able to fit in pretty nicely now that Xavi has left. But then again, our midfield is crowded as of right now because of the Arda Turan signing. We have Rakitic, Iniesta, Sergio Busquets, play Mache back there sometimes. It's a lot of players, so it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, and then Fons, just as a quick thing, obviously with Pogba potentially coming, they've kind of signed Thuram. Are Barca still the team to beat in Europe as the defending champions, or do you think kind of another team's made enough moves to usurp them?
I mean, it will depend on how Messi and Neymar are at the beginning of the season. because they played in the Copa America. Messi went all the way to the final again, only to lose. So if he has an off year, I think they'll probably be out. They'll probably make the top four still because they're just that good. And then if Turan comes in and Vidal comes in the middle of the season and play well right from the start, there'll be a huge boost to Barca. One of the things where you have to see until they start losing. They're always the favorite.
No, absolutely. And then obviously speaking about their rivals, lost Casillas, who's obviously been a one-club player his entire career, an absolute Real Madrid legend. Brought in Casilla from Espanyol to kind of replace him. Believe they've still got. No, they don't have Diego Lopez on the squad. Sorry, I'm talking nonsense. Ignore me. They brought in Danilo from Porto as well for quite a big fee. But Real Madrid, by their standards, relatively quiet window. No major splash signings. Are you guys still expecting a big signing from Real Madrid to try and catch, or do you think they're kind of still pretty set with their roster at the moment?
They made a lot of signings last summer, so that was a lot of money, and even though they are the wealthiest club according to Forbes, once again, they should be able to sign a few players. I think definitely they need help on the goalkeeper position. They have Keylor Navas and the Casilla from what was it called? Espanyol. I don't think that's good enough by Real Madrid standards, especially if they're going against MSN, Messi, Neymar, and Suarez. So they're definitely going to try to push their money for De Gea from Man United, and hopefully they can bring him in. But their biggest concern should be holding on to Sergio Ramos, because that's something that would just be a huge blow for the team, because he's such a great veteran of that team. Losing Xabi Alonso over the years, now Iker Casillas, he's one of the main players in the squad right now besides Cristiano Ronaldo. So losing him would be a huge loss for them. So I think they just need to focus on holding on to him right now. And other than that, I think they're pretty set. Midfield, attacking, they'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're a team that are never really in transition in terms of they've always got kind of an influx of players. But it just feels, for me especially, kind of a relatively quiet window by their standards, especially in the last few years with them splashing huge amounts of cash. But as you say, here kind of signing a lot of players last year, you don't want to upset the balance of the squad too much. Do you guys think that they are still kind of one of the favourites for the Champions League? Or without the signing of De Gea or maybe another top-class goalkeeper, are they not really in that mix at this point, Fons?
I mean, losing Casillas, who was like their team leader, will always hurt. But I think Keylor Navas and Kiko Casilla, will help. I think isn't Chicharito going back to Man U this year?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think if he is leaving, so and he is injured now, probably they could add a striker just to have some depth there. I mean, you have Ronaldo, Bale, James Rodriguez, all good goal scorers, but to have somebody up in front who can help Benzema out, in scoring goals, just being a team player on there, and letting Ronaldo and those other guys shine would be helpful. Add somebody just in case.
And I think Rafa Benitez, he's just, I don't even know how to describe him in words. They're going to get rid of Carlo Ancelotti and bring in, Rafa Benitez, who couldn't even take Napoli to the Champions League. So I don't know how he's going to handle that superstar squad that Carlo Ancelotti had the experience to do so.
Just on that point, I mean, Rafa obviously had a fairly high pedigree back in the mid-2000s with Liverpool, kind of took them pretty close to the league title, took them to a Champions League title, took Chelsea when he came in as an interim manager, took Chelsea to a Europa League title. I think his European pedigree, especially kind of winning, obviously having won the Champions League and won the Europa League as well, proving that he can do it. I think that's Real Madrid's main concern. Obviously, I mean, obviously Real Madrid and Barca are built to both kind of win the treble every year, and that's what they're aiming to do. Is they're aiming to just win as much as possible. But the Champions League for both of them, especially for Real with La Decima 2 years ago, kind of that's their main priority. And if Rafa can do that for them, then I think he could stay for a while, and it could be quite revered there. But I know what you mean. Yeah, he's not the same standard as Carlo Ancelotti, who's won, what is it, 3 European Cups with 2 different clubs, and countless domestic titles. So it's not really something there. But speaking of kind of more European royalty, go to Bayern Munich. Kind of Bayern Munich's activities kind of all been going the other way, which is not something we usually expect. They brought in Douglas Costa from Shakhtar Donetsk, but that's their only piece of notable business that they've really done so far. Do you guys feel that Bayern are about to be going through a period of transition, getting older, selling on Schweinsteiger, so the club hero? Robin and Ribery are both north of 30 now. Obviously brought in Lewandowski last season for a bit of youth injection. They've still got Thiago from Barca that they brought in a couple of years ago. But they're getting older, especially in the kind of, in the positions where they have been good in the past, and what has carried them to kind of their titles and to their Champions League titles mainly. So do you guys feel that Bayern are about to kind of slip out of that kind of upper tier elite team, or do you guys still feel that they are that? And yeah, do you guys still feel that they are that, or they're not, basically?
No, I mean, they're still going to be a really good team. They're still so much like head and shoulders above, everybody else in their league. So they can just walk through that and really focus on winning the Champions League. When you have Pep as your manager, you always have a chance. But now that he's been there for a year or two, he knows what it takes to win. He has a pedigree. He'll know that, yeah, okay, we'll stay competitive. The Bundesliga will stay competitive until maybe the winter break, and then we can just kind of, take it easy for a bit, and then just win it at the end, if ever. When you have, they still have Philipp Lahm as their leader, even though they lost Schweinsteiger. A lot of it will depend on the health of Ribery, Robin, Alonso, all those older guys. But they still have, like, Muller's only 25, Juan Bernat is 22, David Alaba's 23, Götze's 23 also. So they have a lot of young, really good, really young guys who will, if they stay, they'll be the next generation of star Bayern players.
Okay.
I think I agree to a certain degree. They're definitely one of Europe's greatest teams right now, because last year, until they played Barca, they were considered the biggest team and the scariest team in Europe. I mean, they obliterated Porto in that second leg of the Champions League quarterfinals. So they're out there. They lost Schweinsteiger. That's one really good player. Obviously, it's a huge part of the team, but that's only one player gone. But coming back to the German league, I like to joke that it's just the walkthrough for them. But Schalke and Wolfsburg have really stepped it up in the last year, and even Borussia Mönchengladbach, they've been in the top 4. And Dortmund had a pretty okay, mediocre season last year, but I think they can come back stronger. They did defeat them in the domestic German Cup. Dortmund did, Bayern, and they will have a little bit of trouble winning the league next year. It won't be the walkthrough that it usually is, but I think they'll still win. And Champions League, they should still make it to at least the quarters or even the semis, because they're just that talented. They have a lot of talent, and the talk of Arturo Vidal coming in, maybe a swap for Götze. So they're both quality players. So if you're losing Götze and you're gaining Arturo Vidal, you're still pretty much the same caliber team.
So kind of looking into the future then for them, as a quick take from both of you, is there something still to be said though for, obviously both of you kind of mentioned that they're absolutely the best team in Germany, but is there something to be said for the loss of intensity come kind of the latter stages of the Champions League, because they're playing kind of week on week domestically with nothing really to play for? Is it more beneficial? The old NFL adage is that these guys who come in fighting for the 6th seed come in and they're fighting for their lives, and quite often they'll go quite deep in the playoffs. Is it the same for Bayern in the Champions League, in that their intensity is lost, so that's why they're kind of failing at these latter stages?
Mm, no, I mean, in the Premier League, it's so, it's everything's so tight, and they never do well in Champions League, at least the past few years. So I think, it's just having health. Health is always a big issue for them. Javier Martinez, Ribery, they miss a lot of time. So if they are healthy, and Pep, he'll be able to keep them focused. I don't think he'll allow them to, just kind of slack off in the Bundesliga, even though they won't be playing intense games week after week. Yeah, I think they'll still. Yeah, I mean, no, you need being competitive in the league is important, but I don't think it'll necessarily change the fortune if Wolfsburg is on their tails or if they're 10 points behind.
Yeah, I think I agree with Fonz. Regardless of what's going on, I think one thing that he mentioned was being healthy. I think that was their biggest problem last year, facing off against a Barcelona. They didn't have their really big players like Robin and Ribery. They were missing for both legs, and I think being healthy was one of the parts that really hurt them, because in that stage they were losing a lot of German games as well. In the German league, they were losing to 1-0 to like bottom table teams. So they had like a game of 5 games where they didn't win at all. So that was a pretty tough time for them. But I think if they stay healthy, they can keep continuing with that intensity. And Pep Guardiola will never let you out. And I can tell you that from my Barca days. So
yeah, just because I'm conscious of time now, really come to the end of kind of the podcast. So just in terms of Europe, obviously the 3 teams that we've discussed European-wise are arguably the 3 best teams in Europe. You would probably say that if the draw was favourable to all 3 of them, that they would make it all to the semi-finals. But which team, which team's going to be this year's Juventus, this year's Borussia Dortmund, the one that takes the next step and moves on to the semi-finals? What other European team are you looking out for this year to kind of take that next step and become a semi-finalist in the Champions League?
I mean, I'd still say they're not really a Dortmund or a surprise team or Juventus. I think Chelsea would be able to make it to the semi-finals this year. They added some more depth if they stay healthy. They should be there. I mean, Mourinho, like, he is insane in his pursuit of Champions League success, so he'll definitely make that a priority. Maybe that'll open up a chance for City or United to win the Premier League. But yeah, I think Chelsea would be the surprise team, of course.
I'm gonna stick to the Man United bit. I think they can make it to the semis. Even though Peter doesn't agree, I think they're going to be a pretty great team this year. Chelsea were a great team last year, don't get me wrong. But the main thing that they had going for them was that every team under them in the EPL was inconsistent. Chelsea was winning games by 1 or 2 goals every single week, but every single other team underneath them, like Man U, Arsenal, they all had their ups and downs. Arsenal had a great run at the end, but they started the season poorly. Man United was just win 1 game, lose 1 game, win 1 game. It was just all over the place. So I think Chelsea were good enough to win the league last year, and I think they have a great team, great depth, but I don't think they can win the EPL or make it to the semis. I pick Man U to go through the semis.
Yeah, both pretty bold predictions, actually, which is why I was making the face me. Not necessarily that I disagree with you, but just bold predictions that their English team, just with obviously a lot of coverage this last year, that with no English teams making it past the round of 16, they were all talking about kind of the death of English football. And nice to see you guys are kind of picking bold in terms of picking an English team to go to the semi-finals. I think Mahir, yours is slightly more bold for me because I believe Man United have a year left. But if you're right, I'm going to be a very happy man. So it's going to be great. But that's really all we've got time for, guys. So thank you very much for coming on and sharing your views. It was great fun. And we'll see you all watching next time. Bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.